The distress signal echoed through the galaxy for the 7th time. Every channel, every frequency, every civilization. And still no one answered. Commander Ethan Ward stared at the flickering holographic display inside the orbital station above Arcturus 9. The red warning lights reflected in his tired eyes as another transmission burst across the system. This is civilian colony Arcturus 9. We are under attack. Any ship, any fleet, anyone, please respond. Static followed. Then silence. Behind Ethan, the command deck of the Terran Defense relay hummed quietly. Technicians monitored the incoming signals, but none of them spoke. They all knew what the silence meant. The galaxy had heard the call, and the galaxy had chosen to ignore it, because everyone knew what was attacking the colony. A massive hologram suddenly expanded above the command table. A creature appeared, an enormous alien organism with armored plates and long side-like limbs. Its body pulsed with dark bioluminescent veins. The Zarkai swarm, an apex predator species that devoured entire ecosystems, planets, cities, civilizations. Once they arrived, nothing survived. A nervous officer finally broke the silence. "Sir, the Zarkai ships have breached the outer defenses." Ethan clenched his jaw. "How long?" The officer checked his console. 40 minutes before they reached the main colony. 40 minutes. 40 minutes before 20 million civilians were erased. The distress signal continued broadcasting, over and over, across the stars. But every major fleet in the sector had already withdrawn. The Galactic Council had issued a simple directive years ago. If the Zarkai arrive, abandon the system. No fleet could stop them. No weapon could slow them. Entire armadas had tried. None survived. Ethan slowly leaned back in his chair. "Has anyone answered the signal?" The communications officer shook her head. "Negative, Commander. Every nearby system has gone dark." Of course they had. No one wanted to be next. Another transmission suddenly cut through the static. Not from the colony. From deep space. The room froze. The signal identification flashed across the screen. Origin, Sol System. One of the technicians frowned. Earth. Ethan sat up. That can't be right. Earth rarely involved itself in galactic conflicts. Humanity had a reputation for being unpredictable, but they weren't known for sending rescue fleets. The signal opened automatically. A calm voice filled the command deck. Distress call received. Coordinates confirmed. The entire bridge leaned forward. Ethan frowned. That's it. No fleet identification. No military designation. Just the confirmation. The officer looked confused. "Sir, there's no ship signature attached to the signal." Ethan narrowed his eyes. "What do you mean, no ships?" The officer typed rapidly across her console. "I'm scanning the entire system. There are no Terran vessels nearby." The communications officer spoke again. "Commander, we're receiving something else." "Show me." The holographic display changed. Multiple signals appeared. Dozens, then hundreds. Ethan blinked. "These aren't ships." "No, sir," the officer whispered. The sensors struggled to classify the signals. Each one was biological, each one enormous. The computer began listing them one by one. Panther Leo, Canis lupus, Ursus arctos, Carcharodon carcharias. The room filled with confused murmurs. "What are those?" The science officer's face went pale. "Sir, those are our species." Ethan stared at the list. Animals. Predators. Thousands of them. Another signal arrived from Earth. This time with a short message. "Rescue units deployed." Ethan frowned. "Units." The officer zoomed in on the approaching signals. That's when everyone on the bridge saw them. Massive drop pods streaking through space toward the colony surface. Hundreds, thousands. Inside each pod, something moved. Something big. The science officer whispered slowly. "Commander." "What?" "I think Earth didn't send soldiers." The first pod slammed into the surface of Arcturus 9. The impact cracked the ground like thunder. The outer hatch exploded open. A massive shape stepped out. 4 legs. muscles like coiled steel, teeth long as daggers. The colony security cameras captured the moment clearly. The creature raised its head and roared, so loudly the microphones overloaded. The science officer stared in disbelief. That's... Ethan finished the sentence quietly. A lion. More pods landed. Wolves, bears, tigers, creatures that had ruled Earth's ecosystems for millions of years. And now, they were running straight toward the Zarkai swarm. On the bridge, nobody spoke, because everyone realized the same thing at once. The galaxy had abandoned colony, but Earth had answered the distress call, not with ships, not with soldiers, but with something far older, something far more dangerous. The beasts of Earth, and they were very hungry. For a moment after the first drop pods landed, everything went silent. Even the Zarkai swarm seemed to hesitate. Across the colony's shattered streets, cameras broadcast the impossible scene to every surviving control room on Arcturus 9. Hundreds of metallic pods smolder where they had crashed through rooftops and roads. And from them, Earth's predators emerged. The first lion stepped fully into the alien sunlight, its golden mane glowing under Arcturus IX's pale blue sky. It sniffed the air slowly, muscles rippling beneath its skin. Behind it, more shapes appeared. Tigers with burning orange stripes. Massive bears standing taller than armored vehicles. Wolves slipping silently through the rubble like living shadows. And they were all looking the same direction, toward the approaching Zarkai swarm. High above the city, Commander Ethan Ward watched through the orbital relay surveillance feed. The science officer beside him whispered in disbelief, Those are Earth animals." Ethan nodded slowly. "I know, but why would humans send predators instead of soldiers?" No one answered, because the answer was running straight toward the battlefield. The first Zarkai creature crashed through the outer colony walls seconds later. It was enormous, nearly 10 meters long, its armored body covered in black plates sharper than knives. 6 legs slammed into the ground like falling artillery shells, cracking the concrete streets. Its size-shaped limbs flexed eagerly. The creature screeched, a horrible, metallic roar that echoed across the colony. Behind it came more, dozens, then hundreds. The swarm flooded into the city like a living tide. For years the galaxy had feared the Zarkai because they hunted in perfect coordination. Their hive mind allowed them to overwhelm any defense instantly. Armies had fallen within minutes. Planets had burned within hours. But today, they had encountered something new. Something the galaxy had never seen before. Earth's food chain. The first wolf moved. It didn't charge blindly. It circled, low to the ground, silent. 5 more wolves appeared behind it, forming a loose hunting formation instinctively. The Zarkai creature lunged forward. Too fast. Its side limb slashed downward. The wolf dodged. Barely. Concrete exploded where the blade struck. Then another wolf leapt, straight for the creature's exposed neck joint. The Zarkai screeched as sharp teeth tore between its armor plates. Another wolf joined. Then another. Within seconds, a massive predator was surrounded by a pack hunt millions of years in the making. High above, Ethan whispered, "They're coordinating." The science officer shook his head. No one trained them for this. Ethan stared at the screen. They don't need training. Across the city, another drop pod burst open. A grizzly bear stepped out, nearly 4 meters tall. When it reared up, the nearest Zarkai lunged toward it. The alien predator was larger, faster, built for war. But the bear didn't retreat. It roared, a deep, thunderous sound that shook nearby windows. Then the bear charged. The impact when they collided cracked the street beneath them. Claws tore across armor plates. The Zarkai struck back, slicing deep into the bear's shoulder. But the bear kept fighting, because bears didn't fight to survive. They fought to win. With a brutal swipe, the bear ripped one of the alien creature's limbs clean off. Black blood sprayed across the pavement. The Zarkai shrieked in pain. Then the bear bit down on its throat. Hard. In the colony skies, new pods continued raining down. But these were different. Larger. Ocean deployment pods. The moment they hit the massive coastal sea outside the city, they split open underwater, and something ancient stirred beneath the waves. A massive fin cut through the water's surface. Then another. Commander Ethan leaned forward. "Oh, you gotta be kidding me." The sensors confirmed the species. Carcharodon carcharias. Great white sharks. Dozens of them. The Zarkai swarm had also deployed aquatic hunters to cut off any escape by sea. They never expected to meet Earth's ocean predators. The water erupted into chaos. Alien creatures screamed beneath the waves as massive jaws tore through them. For the first time in recorded history, the Zarkai swarm was losing. Back in the colony streets, the battle had become pure savagery. Lions moved like golden lightning between buildings, leaping onto alien predators twice their size. Tigers attacked from rooftops. Wolves hunted in relentless packs. Bears smashed through the swarm like living tanks. The Zarkai tried to adapt. Their hive mind adjusted tactics. But Earth's predators didn't follow predictable patterns. They fought with instinct, with aggression, with something the galaxy had forgotten existed: territorial fury. Because to these creatures, Arcturus 9 was now part of their hunting ground. On the orbital relay, the communications console chimed again. Another message from Earth. Ethan opened it immediately. The calm human voice returned. "Predator deployment successful." The bridge crew stared at the screens as another 100 pods descended. Ethan leaned back slowly. They didn't send soldiers. The science officer finished the thought. They sent Earth's ecosystem. Ethan nodded. And far below, the battlefield roared with claws, teeth, and alien screams. Because humanity had just reminded the galaxy of something terrifying. For millions of years on Earth, everything evolved to survive being hunted. But the creatures humanity had sent, they had evolved for only one purpose: to hunt. And now the Zarkai swarm had become the prey. For the first time in recorded galactic history, the Zarkai swarm retreated. It wasn't full withdrawal at first, just hesitation. The hive mind struggled to process what it was seeing. Across the burning streets of Arcturus 9, thousands of alien predators lay dead or dying. Their armored bodies twitched where claws and teeth had found the tiny gaps evolution had left behind. The Zarkai had conquered hundreds of worlds. But none of those worlds had fought like this. None of them had sent predators to fight predators. On the orbital relay, Commander Ethan Ward stared at the battlefield feeds. Even the hardened Terran technicians looked stunned. The science officer leaned closer to the screen. I don't understand." Ethan didn't look away. "What part?" The officer pointed at the display. Lions tearing through alien creatures twice their size. Wolf packs dragging down armored monsters. Bears smashing through the swarm like living siege engines. Why are they fighting like this? Ethan gave a quiet answer. Because that's what they do on Earth. Across the city, the battle had changed. The Zarkai swarm had adapted. The hive mind began deploying larger creatures. War forms built specifically for combat. Towering monsters crashed into the streets. 15 meters tall. Armored shells thicker than tank plating. Their limbs ended in blades capable of slicing through buildings. These were the creatures that had destroyed entire alien armies. And they immediately targeted the Earth predators. One massive war beast slammed its side limb into a charging tiger. The impact sent the animal tumbling across the street. The creature raised its blade again. Then something struck its side like a missile. A grizzly bear. The bear slammed into the alien monster with terrifying force, claws digging between the armor plates. The Zarkai roared and tried to shake it off. But another predator joined. And another. Soon the massive war beast was surrounded by wolves tearing at its joints. A lion leapt onto its back. The creature staggered. The hive mind began calculating again. This time, the results were disturbing. Back on Earth, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, a human command center watched the same battle unfold. Rows of holographic displays showed every angle of the fight. At the center of the room stood General Marcus Hale, an older man with silver hair and calm eyes. Beside him, a young officer watched the feed in disbelief. "Sir, it's working." Hale nodded slightly. "Yes, but We didn't even modify the animals. No, the general folded his arms. We didn't need to. On Arcturus 9, a Zarkai war beast collapsed under the combined attack of wolves and bears. The hive mind tried to analyze the pattern, but there wasn't one. That was the problem. Alien armies fought using strategy and discipline, predictable formations, predictable reactions. Earth's predators didn't. They attacked with instinct, with unpredictability, with millions of years of evolution behind every movement. The hive mind sent a new directive. Eliminate the predators first. More war beasts flooded the battlefield, but the predators adapted just as quickly. Wolves began isolating weaker targets. Tigers attacked from elevated positions. Bears smashed through alien lines to create openings. And lions hunted the leaders. High above the battlefield, Ethan noticed something strange. Zoom in on Sector 12. The screen magnified instantly. A pack of wolves stood in a loose circle around a wounded Zarkai creature. But they weren't attacking. They were waiting. Seconds later, a massive bear lumbered forward. The wolves moved aside. The bear finished the alien creature with one crushing bite. The science officer whispered, "They're sharing the kill." Ethan nodded slowly. Earth predators don't just fight. They coexist. The officer looked confused. What does that have to do with anything? Ethan leaned back in his chair. On most planets, there's one apex predator. But Earth... He gestured toward the battlefield. Earth has dozens. The Zarkai hive mind ran a final projection. Probability of victory had dropped below 12%. That had never happened before. Ever. Because the hive mind was designed to defeat armies, to outthink civilizations. But this was something else. This was an entire planet's evolutionary arms race. The Zarkai had invaded countless worlds, peaceful ecosystems, fragile biospheres. But Earth was different. Earth was a world where every creature evolved while something else was trying to eat it. And the creatures humanity had sent, they were the winners of that brutal contest. Back in the Terran Command Center, the young officer looked at General Hale. "Sir, the swarm is pulling back." Hale nodded. "They're learning." The officer hesitated. "Should we send the fleet now?" Hale smiled faintly. "No." The officer frowned. "Why not?" Hale gestured toward the battle screens. "Because this wasn't the real weapon." The officer blinked. If the animals weren't the weapon, then what was? Hale looked at the display, where wolves dragged another alien creature to the ground. His voice was calm. The message: high above Arcturus 9, the surviving Zarkai ships began withdrawing. But before they jumped to hyperspace, the hive mind sent one final transmission, a question directed at Earth. "Why did you send predators instead of soldiers?" The Terran response arrived seconds later. Just one sentence. Simple, terrifying, because soldiers can stop fighting. Predators don't. And across the galaxy, civilizations began to understand something horrifying. Humanity hadn't just defended the colony. They had revealed the truth about their homeworld. Earth wasn't a peaceful planet that produced warriors. Earth was a predator factory, and humanity was the smartest predator had ever created. For nearly 20 minutes after the Zarkai fleet began withdrawing, the battlefield of Arcturus 9 remained eerily quiet. The predators of Earth still roamed the shattered city. Wolves stalked through broken streets. Bears dragged the bodies of fallen Zarkai away from their territory. Lions stood atop alien carcasses, like kings surveying conquered land. Above them, the stars flickered as enemy ships prepared to jump to hyperspace. Commander Ethan Ward watched the tactical display carefully. "They're leaving." The communications officer nodded. Multiple Zarkai vessels charging their jump drives. The science officer sighed in relief. "So it's over?" Ethan shook his head slowly. "No." He pointed toward the far side of the system. "Because now they've realized something." The officer frowned. "What?" Ethan's voice dropped. "They've realized Earth cares about this colony. And predators didn't give up territory easily." Suddenly, the alarm lights on the orbital relay flashed. New contacts. Every screen on the bridge filled with sensor data. Ships were entering the system. Hundreds of them, then thousands. The officer's voice trembled. Sir, it's the Zarkai main fleet. The hologram expanded. Gigantic alien vessels filled the void like a living storm. Massive hive ships surrounded by swarms of smaller attack craft. The swarm had retreated only long enough to call for reinforcements. Ethan clenched his jaw. How many? The officer whispered a number. Over 8,000 ships. The bridge fell silent, even with the predators on the ground. The colony couldn't survive that kind of orbital assault. The Zarkai weren't here to reclaim the planet anymore. They were here to erase it. Down in the streets, the predators sensed a change. Animals lifted their heads toward the sky. A lion growled. Wolves howled softly. Even the bears looked upward. Something new was coming. On Earth, in the underground command center, the young officer looked at General Marcus Hale nervously. Sir, the swarm called reinforcements. Hale nodded calmly. Yes, but that's their full invasion fleet. I know. The officer hesitated. Should we deploy Phase 2? Hale folded his arms. Already underway. Back in the Arcturus system, the Zarkai fleet finished forming its attack formation. Thousands of weapons powered up. Orbital bombardment cannons. Planet-cracking plasma arrays. The hive mind transmitted one final message toward the colony. The predators delayed extinction. They cannot prevent it. Commander Ethan stared at the message. Earth, if you have anything left, now would be the time. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then, the stars shifted. At first, it looked like a distortion in space. A ripple. Then dozens of massive shapes emerged from hyperspace. Then hundreds. Then thousands. Human ships. The Terran fleet had arrived. But these ships looked nothing like the sleek alien warships the galaxy was used to. Terran vessels were huge, brutal, blocky metal giants covered in heavy armor. Weapons lined their hulls like the spines of a steel predator. The officer gasped. Those ships are enormous. Ethan nodded. That's the Terran frontier fleet. The fleet formed a defensive wall between the Zarkai swarm and the colony. Thousands of human vessels facing thousands of alien ships. For a moment, the void of space went completely still. Then a transmission came from the human flagship. The message reached every ship in the system, every station, every surviving colonist. A calm human voice spoke. This is Terran Fleet Command. The voice paused, then continued. You attacked a colony under Earth's protection. The Zarkai hive mind responded immediately. Your predators have already been neutralized. The human voice replied without emotion. They weren't meant to win. Commander Ethan frowned. Wait, what? The human voice continued. They were meant to hold you here. At that moment, thousands of small signals appeared around the Zarkai fleet. The science officer stared at the display. Sir, Ethan leaned forward. What is it? Those are satellites. Hundreds of thousands of them, hidden throughout the system, dormant, waiting. The officer whispered. They're activating. Back in the Terran Command Center, General Hale watched quietly. The young officer looked confused. Sir, why deploy predators first if we plan this ambush? Hale answered calmly. Because the Zarkai hive mind calculates probabilities. And predators are irrational. The officer blinked. You mean the animals confuse their strategy? Hale nodded. They forced the swarm to call reinforcements. The officer's eyes widened. That was the plan? Hale smiled slightly. Yes. Back in the Arcturus system, the satellites finished powering up. Hundreds of thousands of them now surrounded the Zarkai fleet. The alien hive mind noticed the trap too late. The human flagship transmitted one final message. Welcome to Earth's hunting ground. Commander Ethan whispered, Oh no, because he finally understood. The predators on the ground, the Terran fleet in orbit, none of them were the real weapon. The real weapon was the trap, and the Zarkai swarm had just flown directly into it. For a single heartbeat, the entire Arcturus system was silent. The Zarkai fleet hung in space like a massive black storm, 8,000 warships, each one capable of destroying cities. and surrounding them, hundreds of thousands of small metallic satellites had just awakened. Commander Ethan Ward stared at the tactical display. "Earth, what did you build?" The answer came seconds later. The satellites moved. Not quickly, not dramatically, just small adjustments in position. Tiny shifts, but those movements formed something terrifying. A perfect sphere around the Zarkai fleet. The alien hive mind immediately reacted. Thousands of Zarkai ships powered their weapons. Energy cannons charged. Fighters launched. The hive mind transmitted a warning. Unknown weapon detected. Destroying immediately. Alien cannons fired. Brilliant beams of plasma streaked through space. Several satellites exploded, but there were too many, far too many, and they kept moving. The sphere tightened. On the human flagship TFS Resolute, a calm officer spoke quietly. "Graviton array at full charge, Admiral." The Terran fleet commander, Admiral David Ross, nodded. "Good." He looked at the holographic display of the trapped Zarkai swarm. "Let's show them what Earth does to predators." Across the sphere, the satellites activated simultaneously. A deep vibration rippled through space itself. The stars seemed to distort. The Zarkai hive mind detected the anomaly immediately. Gravitational disturbance detected. Then the impossible happened. Space began to bend. The satellites weren't weapons in the traditional sense. They were generators. Generators capable of creating an artificial gravitational collapse. The sphere began compressing reality inside it. Zarkai ships suddenly lurched toward the center. The hive mind reacted instantly. Thrusters ignited. Warp drives activated. But escape was impossible, because gravity wasn't pulling them toward a direction. It was pulling them toward everything at once. The entire sphere had become a trap. Commander Ethan whispered from the orbital relay. "They're creating a singularity." The science officer's eyes widened. "But that would destroy half the fleet." Ethan shook his head slowly. "Not half." He looked at the sphere tightening around the swarm. All of it. Inside the trap, the Zarkai ships began colliding. Massive vessels slammed into each other as gravity twisted their formation. Fighters were crushed instantly. Battleships cracked apart under pressure. The hive mind tried to reorganize the swarm, but chaos spread too quickly. Because gravity doesn't negotiate. It simply wins. Then the center of the sphere collapsed. A small point of pure darkness appeared. A newborn black hole. It formed instantly. Hungry. Violent. The Zarkai fleet had seconds left. Thousands of alien ships were dragged toward the singularity like metal into a furnace. One by one, they disappeared. The last transmission from a hive mind echoed across the system. Impossible! No species would deploy such a weapon. Admiral Ross listened quietly. Then he replied, "You invaded the wrong planet." Seconds later, the singularity consumed the final Zarkai vessel. Then the satellites shut down. The artificial black hole collapsed and evaporated into harmless radiation. The battlefield was empty. 8,000 alien ships had simply ceased to exist. Silence spread across the system again. On the surface of Arcturus 9, Earth's predators wandered calmly through the ruined streets. The wolves had begun resting. The lions lay in the sunlight. Bears dragged the last alien bodies away. Their work was finished. On the orbital relay, Ethan exhaled slowly. "Remind me never to fight Earth." The science officer nodded quickly. "Agreed." The communications console chimed again. Another transmission from Earth. This one broadcast across the entire galaxy. Every government, every fleet, every world. The message was simple. Distress signals from Arcturus 9 have been resolved. There was a pause. Then the message continued. For future reference, Earth answers every distress call. Across the galaxy, civilizations listened carefully. Some of them felt relief. Others felt fear, because the galaxy had just witnessed something terrifying. Earth didn't send armies first. Earth sent predators. And if that didn't solve the problem, humanity had far worse things waiting. Weeks later, the Galactic Council held an emergency session. The discussion lasted less than 10 minutes. The final decree was unanimous. A new classification was issued for the Sol system. Planetary threat level, extreme. Reason for designation. Earth is not merely inhabited by predators. Earth creates them. And at the very top of the report, one final warning was added. Never invade a planet where the wildlife is considered phase 1.